Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Kaiju, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews. Why, hello there collectors, it is Steven here, and happy Alien Day to ya. It's going to be my first time celebrating that, and what better way to do that with a review of NECA's deluxe action figure, Alien Queen. To complement all of the Xenomorph figures they have released, we finally have an action figure that is suiting of the Mama Alien herself. And no, I'm not referring to David. So this figure retails at over $100, which is significantly more than the average NECA figure. So with that in mind, with notable NECA quality and a high price tag, is it worth jumping in on this figure when it gets reissued at an affordable price? Well, let's take a look to see whether or not she's worth adding into your collection. Now, before we get this review started, this review is actually a patron's pick. That's right, over on my Patreon, all of the patrons had a shot at picking one of two figures that they wanted to see reviewed this month, and the NECA Alien Queen was the winner. So if you're interested in picking out next month's review that you're gonna see up on the channel, head on over to the Patreon, which will be featured in the top right-hand corner of the screen on the card or in the description down below, and let's see what we can make happen. All right, folks? Now let's get on to the review. First and foremost, the Alien Queen is absolutely huge, so she can't fit on one of my turntables. So we're going to go ahead and nix that for the review and just get right on into the close-up shots. And I do have to say, NECA did a really nice job in terms of the sculpt. Here, there are a ton of nice details, and the biomechanical feeling of the Alien Queen is kept here. There are a ton of small grooves to be found on the Queen. There are lots of little tube-like structures to be found. The teeth are absolutely fantastic, and they are made of translucent plastic. They look like they are dripping wet. Of note, the inner mouth is missing. We're going to take a look at that later, but overall, the blue paint application is nice. Generally speaking, they really nailed the way that this figure looks. For some, they may not be a fan of some of the ways that NECA executed the paint application, but I do think that NECA really hit a home run here, especially when we have the main focal point of the figure for the head. The overall crest of the Queen looks fantastic as well, because we do have a nice blend of blue and black paint applications here. Where we have some of the higher points of the crest, we do have a fantastic blue shading, and some of the divots in the crest where we may have some crevices and whatnot, we do have a nice black wash or a black spray where it really brings out the finer details, and you can see the fantastic qualities of the sculpt. When we take a look at areas such as the neck, or when we take a look at some of the areas around her chest, we can see that the gold paint starts to come into play. Now, unfortunately, it does look like some of the paint quality does drop down a little bit here, but it still looks fantastic at the end of the day, and it does really add to the overall majestic look of the Queen, insofar as that this is going to be one of the alpha predators that is going to take over the planet and turn it into something completely different fit for the Xenomorphs. Generally speaking, this is going to be how the rest of the figure looks in terms of the paint application, except for the silver paint. I do think that overall the silver paint application is a little lacking, especially when we take a look at the fingertips. I kind of feel like that was an afterthought, and they just kind of dipped her fingertips in some silver paint to give her those fingernails a nice little paint job. But other than that, I think she looks exquisite. Whether or not it's going to be some of the parts on the thighs where we're going to actually have areas where we can even stick our fingers in, because there are going to be bony like structures that are going to come off of her leg, or even the high heels that are going to be a part of the Queen's lower portion of the leg. Yeah, that feature is included here. The Queen looks great. To round off this section of the review, we're going to take a look at her tail, where all of the spikes running down her back are going to come all the way up to that infamous tip where she stabbed through Bishop. Executed very well here, and I think NECA really nailed how the Queen looks. So when she's sitting on your shelf, she will absolutely command attention. So if you're looking for a Queen that looks fantastic and is going to be the center of attention, this is going to be the one to get. Now for the fun part, articulation, where I'm going to have to break it down in sections because, again, her size, and we got to keep in mind the support stand and some looseness that I'm going to show you in a minute. So what do we have? What moves? First and foremost, I think this is really great attention to detail from NECA. The crown sort of slides. So remember when Ripley first encountered her, we can have this slide up to cover her up. So that's really cool. So I know some folks have made a custom egg sac for her. So if that's a route you wanted to go, you can have her all covered up if that's something you wanted. So anyway, we do have a hinged jaw. Opens and closes about that wide. And then we do have a ball joint right here for where the head attaches into the neck. So you can get the queen to look around in quite a few different directions. Now here, this portion of the neck is also on a ball joint as well. So you can get her to look around. And we have a fantastic range of movement. So we really get some nice movement here out of that joint. And then this portion of the neck is on a ball joint as well. So we can really get the queen to twist and turn. Just keep in mind that that is also going to throw off the weight. She is very front heavy. So you want to make sure that whenever you're posing her, you're using the support stand correctly, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then you're also keeping in mind her middle and hind portions. So you're not throwing her way too off balance. Now to take a look at her arms, and we're going to have hinges at the wrists for the main arms, which also feature swivels. So that's nice to see here. We are going to have elbow hinges, which is cool. We do also have swivels there. So this way you're able to move her arms around in pretty much any direction you would like, right? Then up here at the shoulders, where they plug into the body, we have swivels. We have swivels where the arms plug into the shoulders, right? And then there's a hinge there as well. So you can really raise and lower her arms, and we can get a ton of poses out of the arms. So the two main arms, they have a fantastic range of movement. So you can pretty much get them in any pose you want, including a nice T-pose, if you should so choose. The little arms, they also have a similar range of movement relative to the big arms, where they plug into the body, their shoulders, if you will. They do have a swivel hinge combo, so we can get them to swivel and hinge. Then at the elbows here, they have a swivel hinge as well. Then the wrists also have a swivel hinge. So the little T-Rex arms can move in pretty much any direction you would like to get them to move in. Now, as well, we do have an ab crunch, which we can get to twist and turn like so. Move up about that far, down, and move from side to side about that much. So we do get a little bit of movement for the queen at her midsection. Now, during this last section, you may have noticed one of these popping off, and these are going to be some of her back spikes. Now, when you open her up fresh out of the box, you are going to have to attach these, and they are actually on double ball joints, so you can get them to move around, which is good because if these were just sculpted into the body, when you go ahead and you move her head around, that main crest, the crown, whatever you would call it, they would just knock into them and maybe you would break them. But unfortunately, as you move her around, they are going to pop out as well because they don't necessarily like to seat into the socket too much. You can heat them up and you can pop them in, but unfortunately it won't necessarily secure them in all the way, just like it happened there. So good job thinking that one through, NECA. Next up, we do have the leg articulation, and oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, so the queen is really heavy, top heavy, if you will, front end heavy. So this is really going to affect her joints because those of you who are familiar with NECA plastic, you do know that they use softer plastic, almost rubbery, if you will. So make sure you're using the support stand properly that comes with her because she has really gotten loose over time. But anyway, we do have hinges where the legs plug in at the hips, and we do have swivels as well. So we get some pretty decent movement there. Unfortunately, there's no sort of thigh swivel here, but down at the knees, we do get a hinge, which also swivels. At this bend, we get a hinge as well. That also swivels For the ankles, we do get a bit of a hinge that also swivels. And then we do get a toe hinge that, as you can see, also swivels for a bunch of ankle rocker movement. Unfortunately, that toe hinge is really difficult to move, and I don't really want to try to move it out of fear of breakage. So realistically speaking, that's about how long you can make the NECA Alien Queen's leg to be, and you can really get her to crouch down to be about that small for a leg. So pretty nice movement there, and yeah, we are going to get some rather loose legs over time. All of these joints have definitely loosened up over the years that I've had her, unfortunately. And last but most certainly not least, we have the tail. We do have a bendy wire, just like the cheap $20 aliens. I say cheap in comparison, but where the tail plugs in, we do actually have a swivel. So as you can see here, it's going to swivel around like this. So if you want it to be a mismatch with the actual spikes going down her back, we can. And it actually feels rather sturdy. So we can get a nice bend here. We can get some pretty cool shapes. I would recommend, though, not bending it too much over time, just out of fear of it breaking through the plastic or the rubber, whatever they're using for the tail, and to make sure that you're not going to snap the wire. So overall, the Queen has some pretty solid articulation, lots of neat nods to the movie here, but make sure you're just going to be using the support stand properly and that you're not forcing anything so that way you don't break her. For accessories, the Queen really doesn't come with too much, aside from those little dorsal spikes that you saw a little bit earlier. She comes with a support stand that comes with 2 rods, and she comes with one inner mouth that is closed and one other inner mouth that is extended and opened. So the support stands are pretty straightforward in that the smaller stand is going to be one that you use to support her around her chest area when she's somewhat more so horizontal. This is going to be your standard support stand. Not a big deal here. It's made of metal, it's nice and sturdy, so this way you don't have to worry about her falling over because, again, she's going to have loose joints, but this is going to support her well enough. Then you're going to have the taller support stand, which this is going to be used for when she's rearing up. So if you want her in a fierce attack pose, this is going to be the way to do it. Unfortunately, we only get one support claw and we only get one support base, so you're going to have to pull the support rod out and just swap those 2 parts out. So, c'est la vie, but hey, at least we get them. Then for the inner mouths, they do look nice. They continue with the blue paint application that's found throughout the rest of the body, and the teeth also feature the translucent plastic that the main mouth has. So that is great to see here. It's good to see that NECA kept things consistent, and we don't have anything that looks off here, except for the fact that the teeth are not aligned properly. But, you know what? I guess we can kind of take what we get here. Yeah, no. One of the issues, though, is that the mouths unfortunately do suffer from the infamous NECA quality, in that the pegs that they have are not always willing to fit inside the hole in the mouth. You're going to have to wiggle them back and forth and fight with them to pop them in. That's why I don't show it on video, because it's a royal pain to do so. So just keep in mind that that's an issue. So overall, the accessories are fitting, and aside from a royal egg sac, there's not much else they could have included because they do sell eggs separately. And if you wanted to check out that video, there should be a card popping up in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and you can check that out. Now to round out the review, here is a size comparison that really cements how big the Queen is. So as you can see, you're going to need to clear off a nice amount of shelf space if you want to put this puppy up on the shelf, because she is absolutely huge and she absolutely deserves the title of a deluxe action figure. So buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. I would have to say that this is definitely something that all Alien fans are going to want because she looks absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately she doesn't really come with anything, and the articulation, she is pretty loose, and I've had her for a couple of years now, and she's only gotten more loose over time. So do keep that in mind. NECA really needed to step up their game here in ensuring that those joints would not get loose, because I do have a feeling that one unfortunate bump, she is going to take a shelf dive if that stand should give out for any reason. Other than that, if you do like how the NECA Queen looks, make sure you are getting a legitimate version, because unfortunately there are some Chinese factories that have been releasing some non-legitimate versions for significantly cheaper, and they're going to try to get your money. So again, be savvy how you're going to spend your money and buy from official sources, so this way you know you're getting yourself a legitimate queen and you should be happy with your purchase. Well, folks, that's the end of this review. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow me on social media to catch more behind-the-scenes shenanigans and updates. The end card should be popping up now with more hand-selected STR goodness for you to watch, so check out some of those videos. Be sure to check the description, too, to see where you can buy this figure or others like it, and some cool links like the credits for this video and other ways you can help out the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next